Hello and welcome to the screencast overview for the urinary system. I have the Urinary Lab page open. It is currently missing the link for the screencast that I'm making and the link for the quiz, but it'll be right here where it says here once I have it made. I was just set up for doing screencasts, so I wanted to do that part first. As usual, we have links to the full lab guide and the activities. I will be using the full lab guide with all the explanation and whatnot. Hopefully you can see that. I didn't see the screen come up. Let me do that again. The full lab guide. There we go. Now you can definitely see it. But we were on this page here. And then I am going to be using these PowerPoints. I've also made the PDFs available for those of you that have trouble working with PowerPoints. So we'll go through the lab guide using the PowerPoints because this is what we care about now. And I think we've got a good view of what we need to see. One thing I just wanted to point out, this is 3 separate pictures that I have all smushed together, but this is what the model that's going to show up on the exam actually looks like. So it's one big plaque with these 3 different pieces on it. I just have them broken up into different pictures because it makes it easier to teach the anatomy that way. So let's then work our way through. We've got, where's our first big stuff? All right. Oh, here we go. This big list of stuff here you can find here with this figure. So all of this would show up on this model with the exception of these 2 where it says next slide. It's hard to see in these smaller pictures, so we use the zoom in for those. So I will point everything out rather quickly and then give you a heads up on what kind of function you're going to need to know. So for the most part, all of this doesn't have a lot of functionality to it. So we're just going to go over the parts first. So first things first, this whole outer region, all the way around in between sort of this line and that line, that is all the cortex. Then this middle region made up of all of these structures here, I think they look like ginkgo biloba leaves. That whole region is called the medulla. Each one of these structures is called a medullary pyramid or renal pyramid. Then moving in deeper, each one of these little, kind of looks like a funnel, right? This is where the finished urine is going to trickle through the medulla into these structures. These are called the minor calyces. So this would be a minor calyx. Where 2 of the minor calyxes meet, all of this is the major calyx, and then this region here is the pelvis, followed by the ureter. I would not worry too much about the difference between a minor calyx and a major calyx, so this versus that, right? As long as you don't call this the pelvis, or the pelvis a minor calyx, we're not going to worry about the transition between minor calyx and major calyx and where exactly the major calyx becomes the pelvis. I'll try and put the arrows for exams and quizzes in the most unambiguous spot, but there's always going to be some ambiguity. And you're just going to have to trust me to grade fairly. Regarding the structures that we went over, one of the functional things that you want to know is the order in which urine flows through things. And I'm going to add a few things to your list here. So urine is going to start in the minor calyx, then flow into the major calyx. From there, the pelvis, and then the ureter. The ureters, you may probably be able to guess, are then going to lead to the bladder. Hopefully that's legible as the bladder. And then the bladder empties into the urethra. So you want to know that order: minor calyx, major calyx, pelvis, ureter, bladder, urethra. So for everything else, don't worry about the function. And for the blood vessels, we're just identifying the blood vessels too. So now looking at the blood vessels, we're just going to do the arteries because the veins have the same name. So here's your renal artery, renal vein next to it. The first branch that you see would be segmental. So there's a segmental, here's a segmental, there's a little segmental hiding there. So segmental artery, segmental vein. Once you're out in between two of the medullary pyramids, that is the interlobar artery or interlobar vein. And then this arch shape is the arcuate artery or arcuate vein. And then these red things here, here, and there, or this blue thing here and there, those are the cortical radiate arteries or cortical radiate veins, which I said were going to be on the other slide, and they are, but I just wanted to show them all to you. So just be able to identify them. Don't worry about function or the order in which blood would flow through them. So that's that. That's just a big long list of anatomy. Know all of it and know the sequence of the flow of urine. And then there's just this if you want to practice with it. Oops, I got these out of order. There's our blank. So here's just a zoom in on one medullary pyramid, right? So this is one medullary pyramid or one chunk of the medulla. These then are your arcuate arteries or arcuate veins, and this would be cortical radiate artery, cortical radiate artery, cortical radiate vein. You'll also notice, I just want to point one thing out. See this long loop of Henle here? It is not on your list of things to know, but I want to point out this long loop of Henle should have one of these over it. This is your vasa recta, which dips down into, way down into the medulla. And as you recall, it's your loop and your vasa recta that establish and maintain your medullary osmotic gradient. So there's that to remember. Did we do everything? Yeah. Cortex, this region, medulla, this region, one medullary pyramid, and we already went over the blood vessels that you want to be able to identify. Then we get here. Oh, there's supposed to be an arrow going from this to that, which just means this is a blow up of that structure right here. Don't worry about this picture. It's just there so that you can see where this is located in the grand scheme of the kidney. This is a renal corpuscle. The renal corpuscle is the combination of Bowman's capsule and the glomerulus. So really this should be kind of indented a little bit. Not that it matters. So there you go. Your renal corpuscle is your Bowman's capsule plus your glomerulus. So again, this whole thing, right? Everything inside of the circle is the renal corpuscle, which is then made up of just this structure here. I could probably choose a better color, right? That is Bowman's capsule, and then, or the renal capsule. It used to be, what, a glomerular capsule. They keep changing it. It used to be called Bowman's capsule. But yeah, it does say Bowman's capsule there. You should probably commit to memory glomerular capsule. Then the glomerulus itself is just this tangle of blood vessels. And both those red things and those yellow things there, those are both part of the glomerulus. They're just showing it with and without the podocytes, which are the yellow cells that cover your glomerular capillaries. Then on this model here, this is your afferent arteriole, and this is your efferent arteriole. So blood's going to flow in here, stuff leaks out, so filtrate goes down there, and then the blood that has then been filtered flows out your efferent arteriole. There are two things to key on to tell the difference between the two of them. One is that this is a little wider, your efferent, or excuse me, your afferent is a little wider because more fluid's going to go in here than comes out here, right? Blood's going to come in, some fluid is going to leak out of the blood, so if fluid leaks out here, there's less to come out here. Plus, you can see this just looks beefier. It looks like it's got more stuff wrapped around the outside of it. That's the smooth muscle in that arteriole to regulate how much filtrate makes it into the glomerulus. That's for the myogenic response of your glomerulus, so that you can regulate your glomerular filtration rate. And then this is supposed to be granular cells, but we don't care about those. So you want to know afferent, efferent, whole thing is the corpuscle, outer layer, capsule, blood vessels, glomerulus. Straightforward. For each one of those things, know what the function is. Read the lab guide, come up with a basic function for each thing. But like we just said, the blood vessels are blood goes in, blood comes out. The glomerulus is for filtration, and the glomerular capsule simply collects the filtrate. It's pretty straightforward. Then the labeled versus the unlabeled one. Then we have this. So we have this model and this model. They both illustrate the same, what's the word I'm looking for, anatomy. And it'll probably be a combination of both of them that show up on the lab exam. I know that makes it harder, but so be it. It's a difficult class. Both images of both nephrons will be loaded into Canvas, and Canvas will give different students different pictures. So you have to know both of them. Where was I? And so now this is our list of stuff, just to show you where I am here. Right? We did all that. Now we're on to this. For this, you do want to know function for everything on here, as I was saying. So let's go back and get this. So this is sort of bird's eye view. This is zoomed in just on this area so that you can see what's going on with the tubules here. Did I have? Oh, I see. I have the labels on it here. So really quick then, looking at this, what you want to remember is the way to understand these is to start at the glomerular capsule, because this is where the filtrate is going to be formed. Then you want to track the flow of filtrate. And what you're going to notice, or what you would notice if you could actually have this model in front of you in person, is that there's a crossover here where this tubule here crosses under this tubule here. So the urine, what's a good color for urine? Let's just do green because it'll contrast and make it thin. Right, so the urine's going to start here, and oh, too thin, sorry. Let's make it darker and thicker so you can actually see it. So the urine's going to start here, and it's going to go through there. Then it's going to cross under. Now we're down here. That's still not a good color. Sorry, this is taking a long time. I bet purple is going to show up nicely, and we'll make it even thicker. So filtrate comes out here, blah, 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 goes down here. That makes this first section here your proximal convoluted tubule. So it's farther away geographically from the glomerulus than this squiggly part here, but the urine ends up going through it first. So then the urine's going to go down, making this side your descending limb, come back up, making that side your ascending limb, then squiggly, squiggly, squiggly bit, making this part over here your distal convoluted tubule, and then that crosses back over and the urine goes down here, so making this thing here the collecting duct. So again, over here on this side, because of the crossover here, this is your proximal convoluted tubule, this is your distal convoluted tubule. So follow the flow of urine, and then you won't get proximal versus distal mixed up, and you'll be able to tell which is your descending limb versus which is your ascending limb when you're looking at the loop of Henle. This model here at first is even more confusing, but once you understand how to decode it, it's almost easier because everything is color-coded. So I'm not gonna blow this up even more. I'm blowing up. Whoop, don't want to make that too big. But here, if we just look real close at this, this is our glomerulus. We're not worried about blood vessels here. We're just doing the parts of the nephron. So if it's blue or red, it doesn't matter. So this is our glomerulus. Here is what's coming out of it. So if you remember how the nephron is put together, then you don't have to try and trace all of this craziness. You can see here that brown is connected to the glomerulus. That makes brown your proximal convoluted tubule. So here's all proximal convoluted tubule messiness. And then look, oh, this is brown. So this must be coming off of the proximal convoluted tubule. That makes this part here, right, which is this over here that you probably can't see, your descending limb, right? Then let's just go yellow because it's bright. Right, urine goes down this way. There's your descending limb, then comes back up. Right, so this side here is your ascending limb. And if your ascending limb is the color, same color as that squiggly stuff here, or this squiggly stuff here, then you know that this purple part has to be distal convoluted tubule. And then you can see distal convoluted tubule here meeting this yellow thing. So this yellow thing, which I am just now coloring red here and here, right? That must be your collecting duct. So once you sort of figure out how to decode it and remember that, right, the brown stuff that is connected to the glomerulus must be proximal, then you've got proximal convoluted tubule, descending limb, ascending limb, distal convoluted tubule, and collecting duct. You just have to trace the flow of filtrate. It's not that hard. So refer to your lecture notes to get a quick and easy description of what happens in the glomerulus, proximal convoluted tubule, descending limb, ascending limb, distal convoluted tubule, and collecting duct. It should be, right, a sentence fragment to say what happens in each part. Then we've got, last thing to cover, urinary lecture is a pain in the butt. Urinary lab, relatively straightforward. But this is what we've said about A&P. The A&P2 lab is not that bad compared to the A&P1 lab. So we've got just these three structures that we want to be able to identify on a histology slide, and I am going to tell you that you can actually eliminate one of them because it is too small to see, and that is the lumen of the glomerular capsule. See there. So just this little gap of empty space is the lumen. And it's too hard to put the pointer there. Everybody wants to identify something that has stain on it. Nobody wants to identify a little white space. So that never shows up on the lab exam. So now it's just the glomerulus versus the renal tubules. This thing here that looks like a little shrub or a tree is a glomerulus. So you've got one here, one there. There's what looks like part of one there and what looks like part of one there. Everything else is the tubules. And if this were a slightly better slide and a slightly better picture, I'd be able to point out some actual cuboidal epithelial cells. But if you spend some time playing around with Practice Anatomy Lab or just do a Google image search, you will see that these are distinctly cuboidal looking cells in all of these tubules. That's it. That's everything you're going to have to know. Right, so what you'll have to do at some point, I forget when this is due, the week of the 21st, so 21st being the Monday. I shouldn't throw out dates for other semesters. Ignore that date. Let me show you what I just did. I clicked on when we were there, and you know, because you've done this before, but I feel like I like to show people. Where is it? Whoops, you're on the page. So you take this out, you look at it, you maybe spend some time with Practice Anatomy Lab, and then you decide it's time to do your homework, so you click on that. It takes you to the worksheet. You have a PDF form and a PowerPoint form, depending on which you prefer to use, of... What did I do? Oh, I see. That's fine. Of this file right here, right? So here is all of the anatomy that you need to identify. Here are all of your possibilities, with the exception of these two, right? If it says next slide, it's not highlighted over here. So then you can either, go over here and say cortex is B, and the pyramid equals H, or whatever, put your answers in there. Or you can download that document here, which looks like this, and just put your answers in here. You do have to delete the line I gave you to make it fit, but it just looks weird not having the lines. Then it's just this simpler document that you can submit, and it's easier for me to assess whether or not you've made an honest effort. Then when you're done with all that, the quiz is not there yet, but the quiz will be right here. And like the digestive system, it will be in Canvas with images from the PowerPoint or very similar images. So for the rest of the semester, urinary and then reproductive, we're using Canvas because it's just a better option, even though it's more work. That's it. Hope you enjoy.